This is Eastland Radio Repertory Theater. For more information, go to eastlandradiotheater.weebly.com or email eastlandradiotheater@usa.com. The following is for entertainment purposes only. All copyrights are held by their original authors.
During the whole of a dull, dark, and soundless day in the autumn of the year, when the clouds hung oppressively low in the heavens, I had been passing alone on horseback through a singularly dreary tract of country, and at length found myself, as the shades of evening drew on, within view of the melancholy house of Usher. I know not how it was, but with the first glimpse of the building, a sense of insufferable gloom pervaded my spirit. Its principal feature seemed to be that of an excessive antiquity. The discoloration of ages had been great. Minute fungi overspread the whole exterior, hanging in a fine, tangled webwork from the eaves. I noticed a barely perceptible fissure, which, extending from the roof of the building in front, made its way down the wall in a zigzag direction until the crack became lost in the sullen waters of the Tarn. In this mansion of gloom, I would spend some weeks in company with its proprietor, Roderick Usher, who had been one of my boon companions in boyhood. But many years had elapsed since our last meeting. A letter, however, had lately reached me in a distant part of the country, a letter from him, requesting that I come at once. At last I rode to the house, where a servant took my horse. I entered the Gothic archway of the hall, where a valet of stealthy step conducted me in silence through many dark and intricate passages to the studio of his master. The room was large and lofty. Dark draperies hung upon the walls. An air of stern, deep, and unrelieved gloom hung over and pervaded all. Upon my entrance, Usher arose from a sofa on which he had been lying at full length and greeted me warmly.
Ah, you have come. You have come. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Usher, my dear fellow, I came at once. Your note made mention of an acute illness, so I left immediately.
Your cheerfulness will cure it, I'm certain. I knew you would come, my dear friend, my only friend.
I gazed upon him with a feeling half of pity, half of awe. Surely man had never before so terribly altered, in so brief a period, as had Roderick Usher. The ghastly pallor of his skin and the miraculous luster of the eye, above all things, startled and even awed me. His silken hair had been allowed to grow wildly, and it floated rather than fell about his face. He entered at some length into what he conceived to be the nature of his malady.
You see, old friend, my disease is a constitutional and a family evil, one for which I fear I shall find no remedy. It is a nervous affection, manifesting itself in a morbid acuteness of my senses. I cannot eat except the most insipid food, which alone is endurable. I can only wear clothing of a certain texture. The odors of all flowers are oppressive. My eyes are tortured by even a faint light, and sounds inspire me with horror, except for peculiar sounds from stringed instruments.
I noticed many books and musical instruments lay scattered about the room. Usher became alternately vivacious and sullen. His voice displayed a nervous agitation. To an invisible species of terror, I found him a slave.
I shall perish. I must perish in this deplorable folly and shall be lost. You see, I shudder at the thought of any, even the most trivial incident which may affect this intolerable agitation of soul. I have indeed no abhorrence of danger, except in its absolute effect, in terror. In my condition, I feel that the period will sooner or later arrive when I must abandon life and reason together in some struggle with the grim phantasm, fear.
Well, what's to be done? What can I do? Perhaps if you were to leave here for a time...
Never. For years I have never ventured forth. This house of Usher, with its grey walls and turrets, and with its dim town surrounding it, has become part of me, and I of it.
As I looked upon him in the gloom, my fancy saw in him, as in the great stone house, a crack, a fissure, that at any time might bring about the complete collapse of the last of the house of Usher. But then he told me of a strange event that I previously knew nothing of.
Did you know that I have a sister?
No, I did not know. She lives here?
She has been my sole companion for years. She is my last and only relative on earth. The Lady Madeline suffers from a severe and long-continued illness, which, I fear, shall soon take her away. Her decease will leave me the last of the ancient race of the Ushers.
While he spoke, the Lady Madeline passed through a remote portion of the apartment, and without having noticed my presence, disappeared.
The disease of the Lady Madeline has long baffled the skill of her physicians. A settled apathy, a gradual wasting away of the person, and frequent, although brief, spells of a cataleptical character were the unusual diagnoses.
She suffers from catalepsy?
That is one of the signs of her malady. She'll frequently fall into a trance, a cataleptical state, which has the very appearance of death itself.
Finally, one evening, he abruptly told me what I had been expecting.
The Lady Madeline is no more.
Usher, I'm deeply sorry.
Before she is buried in the family tomb, I shall preserve her corpse for a fortnight. The singular nature of her disease, with its death-like trances, prompts me to take this precaution. But I fear the doctors are correct. The Lady Madeline is no more.
At the request of Usher, I personally aided him in the arrangements for the temporary entombment. The body having been encoffined, we two alone bore it to its rest. The vault in which we placed it was small, damp, and utterly without means of admission for light, lying at great depth immediately beneath that portion of the building in which was my own sleeping apartment. The door, of massive iron, caused an unusually sharp, grating sound as it moved upon its hinges. Having deposited our mournful burden within this region of horror, we partially turned aside the yet unscrewed lid of the coffin and looked upon the face of the tenant. A striking similitude between the brother and sister now first arrested my attention, and Usher, reading my thoughts, murmured to me,
Yes, she and I were twins. Between us there have always existed sympathies. Strange, unexplainable sympathies.
There is upon her face a faint blush of life.
It is a mockery. The disease which has entombed the Lady Madeline left this mocking color and this lingering smile upon her lips. It was even so, and yet she lived and merely fell into a trance.
We replaced and screwed down the lid. And having secured the door of iron, made our way with toil into the scarcely less gloomy apartments of the upper portion of the house. After some days of bitter grief, a change came over the features of the last of the Ushers. He roamed from chamber to chamber with hurried, unequal, and meaningless steps. Late one night, the 7th or 8th day after the placing of the Lady Madeline within the vault, sleep came not near my bed, while the hours waned and waned away. I struggled to throw off the nervousness which had dominion over me, but my efforts were fruitless. The storm was rising, and through the pauses of the storm, at long intervals, I heard certain low and indefinite sounds. Then I heard what I recognized as the light footstep of Usher on the staircase, followed in an instant by his rapping at my door. I opened, and he entered, bearing a lamp.
And you have not seen it? You have not then seen it? But wait, you shall, you shall.
Here he hurried to one of the windows and threw it freely open to the storm. It was indeed a tempestuous yet sternly beautiful night, and one wildly singular in its terror and its beauty. You must not! You shall not behold this! Let us close this casement. The air is chilling and dangerous to your frame. Here, Usher, is one of your favorite romances. I will read and you shall listen, and so we will pass away this terrible night together. The antique volume which I had taken up was The Mad Tryst of Sir Launcelot Canning. I had arrived at that portion of the story where Ethelred, the hero of the tale, sought forcible entrance into the dwelling of the hermit. And Ethelred, striking the door with his gauntleted hand, so cracked and ripped and tore all asunder that the noise of the dry and hollow-sounding wood alarmed and reverberated throughout the forest. For a moment I paused, for it appeared to me that from some very remote portion of the mansion there came indistinctly to my ears the echo of the very cracking and ripping sound which the story described. It was beyond doubt noises of the still increasing storm. I continued the story. But the good champion Ethelred, now entering within the door, was sore enraged and amazed to perceive a dragon of a scaly and prodigious demeanor and of a fiery tongue, which sat in guard before a palace of gold with a floor of silver. And Ethelred uplifted his mace and struck upon the head of the dragon, which fell before him, and gave up his pesty breath with a shriek so horrid and harsh, and withal so piercing, that Ethelred had feigned to close his ears with his hands against the dreadful noise of it, the like whereof was never before heard. Here again I paused abruptly, and now with a feeling of wild amazement, for there could be no doubt whatever that in this instance I did actually hear a low and distant screaming or grating sound, exact counterpart of what my fancy had already conjured up for the dragon's unnatural shriek in the story. Usher, during these strange events, had gradually brought round his chair so as to sit with his face to the door of the chamber. He rocked from side to side with a gentle, yet constant and uniform sway, his eyes wide and rigid. Again I read from the ancient book. And now the champion, having escaped from the terrible fury of the dragon, approached valorously over the silver pavement of the castle to where the shield of shining brass hung upon the wall. The shield fell down at his feet upon the silver floor with a mighty, great, and terrible ringing sound. No sooner had these syllables passed my lips than, as if a shield of brass had indeed at that moment fallen heavily upon a floor of silver, I became aware of a distinct, hollow, metallic, and clamorous, yet apparently muffled reverberation. The measured, rocking movement of Usher was undisturbed. His eyes were bent fixedly before him.
Not hear it. Yes, I hear it, and have heard it.
Long, many minutes, many hours, many days have I heard it, yet I dared not speak. We have put her living in the tomb. I now tell you that I heard her first feeble movement in the hollow coffin. I heard them many, many days ago, yet I dared not speak. And now, tonight, Ethelred, the breaking of the hermit's door, and the death cry of the dragon, and the clangor of the shield, were rather the rending of a coffin, and the grating of the iron hinges of a prison, and her struggles within the archway of the vault.
Here Usher sprang furiously to his feet.
Have I not heard her footstep on the stair? Do I not distinguish that heavy and horrible beating of her heart? I tell you that she now stands outside the door!
As if in the superhuman energy of his utterance, there had been found the potency of a spell. The huge antique panels to which Usher pointed threw slowly back at an instant their ponderous and ebony jaws. It was the work of the rushing gust. But then there did stand the lofty and enshrouded figure of the Lady Madeline of Usher. There was blood upon her white robes. For a moment she remained trembling and reeling to and fro upon the threshold, then with a low, moaning cry, fell heavily inward upon her bed. From that chamber and from that mansion I fled, aghast. The storm was still abroad in all its wrath, when suddenly there shot along the path a wild light. When I turned and gazed at the ancient and vast building, the crack, which I had noticed upon arrival, rapidly widened. My brain reeled as I saw the mighty walls rushing asunder. There was a long, tumultuous shouting sound, like the voice of 1,000 waters. And the deep and dank tarn at my feet closed sullenly and silently over the fragments of the house of Usher.
If you are enjoying this presentation, please let us know. Please email us at eastlandradiotheater@usa.com. For more information, go to eastlandradiotheater.weebly.com. This is Eastland Radio Repertory Theater. For more information, go to eastlandradiotheater.weebly.com or email eastlandradiotheater@usa.com. The following is for entertainment purposes only. All copyrights are held by their original authors.
Sound Image, in conjunction with Tisch School of the Arts, New York University, presents Edgar Allan Poe's The Cask of Amontillado.
1,000 injuries of Fortunato I had borne as best I could, but when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. It was about dusk one evening during the supreme madness of the carnival season that I encountered my friend.
Well, it was not the illustrious Montresor.
My dear Fortunato, you were luckily met. How remarkably well you are looking today.
How do you do this fine evening?
He accosted me with excessive warmth, for he had been drinking much. He had on a tight-fitting party-striped dress, and his head was surmounted by the conical cap and bells of Motley. I was so pleased to see him that I thought I should never have done wringing his hand. It must be understood that neither by word nor deed had I given Fortunato cause to doubt my goodwill. He did not perceive that my smile now was at the thought of his immolation.
Ladies. A bit of a disappointment.
The ladies?
No, the wine.
He had a weak point, this Fortunato. Although in other regards he was a man to be respected. He prided himself on his connoisseurship in wine.
Barrel with less affinity for oak. Say, Chateau Mouton Rocher.
But I have received a pipe of what passes for Amontillado, and I have my doubts.
Amontillado? Impossible. And in the middle of the carnival?
I have my doubts, and I was foolish enough to pay the full Amontillado price without consulting you.
Amontillado.
I have my doubts.
Amontillado.
And I must satisfy them.
Amontillado.
As you were engaged, I am on my way to Lucchese. If anyone has a critical turn...
Lucchese cannot tell Amontillado from sherry. Come, let us go.
Whither?
To your vaults.
Oh, my friend, no. I will not impose upon your good nature. I perceive you have an engagement.
I have no engagement. Come.
Thus speaking, Fortunato possessed himself of my arm. Putting on a mask of black silk and drawing a roquelaire about me, I suffered him to hurry to my palazzo. There were no attendants at home. They had absconded to make merry in honor of the time. This way, my dear Fortunato. Be cautious of your step.
The pipe.
It is further on, but observe the white webwork which gleams from these walls. He turned towards me and looked into my eyes with two filmy orbs that distilled the rheum of intoxication.
Nater?
Nater. Oh, how long have you had that cough?
It is nothing.
Come, we will go back. Your health is precious. You are rich, respected, admired, beloved. You are happy as I was. We will go back. You will be ill, and I cannot be responsible. Besides, there is Lucchese.
Enough. The cough is a mere nothing. It will not kill me. I shall not die of a cough.
True. True. But you should use all proper caution. A draught of this Medoc will defend us from the damps.
I drink to the buried that repose round us.
And I to your long life. We had passed through walls of piled bones, with casks and puncheons intermingling into the innermost recesses of the catacombs.
His vaults are extensive.
The Montresors were a great and numerous family.
I forgot your arms.
A huge human foot of gold in a field azure. The foot crushes a serpent rampant whose fangs are embedded in the heel. Nemo me impune lacessit.
No one strikes me with impunity.
The nater. See, it increases. It hangs like moss upon the vaults. We are below the river's bed. The drops of moisture trickle among the bones. Oh, come. We will go back ere it is too late. You come.
It's nothing. Let us go on. But first, another draught of the Medoc.
Let us proceed to the Amontillado. At the most remote end of the crypt there appeared 3 walls lined with human remains in the fashion of the great catacombs of Paris. The 4th wall had fallen, exposing a small interior recess. Proceed. Herein is the Amontillado. As for Lucchesi,
He is an ignoramus.
pass your hand over the wall. You cannot help feeling the nature. I must positively leave you. But I must first render you all the little attentions in my power.
The Amontillado.
True, the Amontillado. As I said these words, I busied myself among the pile of bones. Throwing them aside, I soon uncovered a quantity of building stone and mortar. With these materials, and with the aid of my trowel, I began vigorously to wall up the entrance of the niche. I ceased my labors and sat down upon the bones. When at last the clanking subsided, I resumed the trowel and finished without interruption the final tiers of the wall.
A very good joke indeed. An excellent jest. Oh, we will have many a rich laugh about it at the Palazzo. over the wine.
The Amontillado!
Yes, the Amontillado. Will not they be awaiting us at the Palazzo? The Lady Fortunato and the rest? Let us be gone.
Yes, let us be gone.
Love of God, Montresor.
Yes, for the love of God. Fortunato. Fortunato! My heart grew sick on account of the dampness of the catacombs. I hastened to make an end of my labor. Against the new masonry I re-erected the old rampart of bones. For the half of a century, no mortal has disturbed them. In pace requiescat. May he rest in peace.
Edgar Allan Poe's The Cask of Amontillado. Directed and produced by George Booth. Adaptation written by George Booth and Raven Jensen. Music and editing by Justin Ayers. Casting by Miranda Hill. Sound design by Raven Jensen, Miranda Hill, and Liam Aiken. The voice of Montresor by Angus Hepburn. The voice of Fortunato by Thomas Lehman. Special thanks to Charles Potter and Alex Raspa.
This has been a presentation of Eastland Radio Repertory Theater. For more information, go to eastlandradiotheater.weebly.com or email us at eastlandradiotheater@usa.com.